Welcome back to the Brute for Life podcast. This week, we're going to talk about the hard truth of starting over, but not starting over in reference to life, starting over as in starting a new job or a new position. In the last, you know, 3 years, this will now be the third time that I am switching jobs. Now, I want to get into this because I think everybody at some point gets comfortable in the position that they're in. And they get comfortable in the position that they have. They always want a little bit more out of that next step. And when you wait patiently for that next step and it doesn't come to fruition, then you start to think about there's got to be other opportunities or other ways for me to be able to develop and grow and move into that next spot. But here are some of the things that you don't think about as you start to navigate this process. One, you leave something that you feel comfortable in, right? You're in a role where you know the ins and outs, you know how to operate daily, you know how to do all of these things, but you're leaving that comfort zone, which, as we have talked about previously, working in an uncomfortable environment always leads to growth. The other thing about that position you're leaving is that you know that role, you know the rhythm, you know the value, you know every single step that you have to take every single day. And then you put yourself in a position where you're going to be out of that. And now you're going to be the new guy starting over, trying to rebuild those relationships, trying to navigate whatever the next steps are. And in relation to what it is that I've done, which was leave from retail and go into sales, you go into this thinking you know something, but as you start to get through the process, you really start to see that either one, what you know translates to some extent, which will help you navigate the process and help you not lose as much confidence moving into that new environment. The other thing is that you could learn that all your knowledge doesn't translate into that new role. And then it leaves you questioning whether or not your decision was a smart one. But here's the thing is that nobody ever tells you, and there's no way to really prepare for any of that as you're making that transition. So let's get into all of these things and let's try to figure out and try to break down what the whole process looks like and how to put yourself in a position where you could utilize what you do know with what you may not know in order to relieve some of that lack of confidence, the nervousness, and all that stuff, right? So, as I had said before, growth doesn't feel like growth all the time. Sometimes it feels like pressure and it feels like you're going backwards. But really, what it's doing is it's starting to shine light on the steps that it's going to take in order to start pushing forward. And that's important to remember because there's always going to be a challenge. And whenever you want more, there's always going to be stuff that you haven't done before that you're now going to have to do in order to be successful in that new environment. So let's get into the mental battle, the doubt, the pressure, the confidence, all of that stuff, right? So you can be successful and still be a beginner in every aspect of that job and that role. It's just not going to look like the same success, right? So you went from knowing everything to now asking questions like you did when you first started developing the skills that you now have. And it's hard to wrap your head around because as you develop skills, right, you start to build self confidence. And some people actually start to build an ego about, I am the greatest at what I do. But I think the thing that we lose in all of that is that everybody is replaceable, right? Everybody comes to the table with a set of skills of some level, and everybody has the opportunity and the ability to learn. So that's important to remember in every role that you're in, especially when you're respected in your last role, because you come in with this almost high level of self-confidence. It's not an arrogance, although some people translate it into an arrogance. But sometimes that doesn't translate into your next role, right? Like, so all the merchandising skills and all that stuff that I knew in retail doesn't necessarily translate into sales, my first sales position. It did to a point because I could help my customers merchandise and reorganize all of what they were doing on their sales floor. But when I moved over into the hospitality side of sales, that stuff doesn't necessarily translate because merchandising doesn't have really an impact on plate presentation. It just doesn't. The inventory side and the gross profit side and understanding all of your business metrics does, but people are less apt to open up those pages to you on the hospitality side. So then you start to question whether or not you actually have the skills to do this job. And it's hard to take that hit. It's hard to understand that, like, you went from playing in the big leagues to now you're playing back at the Babe Ruth level. It's a hard mental hit to take, but you have to trust and believe in yourself, right? And you have to be able to put yourself in a position where you can now use the opportunities as reasons for pushing through every single day. And you will feel like you need to prove yourself quickly. But it's not about quick, right? It's about showing growth on a regular basis and having that growth be consistent, right? And during that process, as you meet challenges, you're going to start the overthinking. You're going to start putting on pressure on yourself in order to perform. And it's going to start to feel like people are micromanaging you right from the beginning. And that's only because we came from a position where we knew a lot of the ins and outs, right? We were you could manage your day and be successful because you knew every aspect of your role, right? And there's always opportunities to learn more, but you feel 100% comfortable in that role, right? So now when you have people um trying to develop you in what your new position is, it can feel like you're being micromanaged. And you're not, like, I shouldn't say you're not, like, you could be, but chances are is they're trying to educate you to the nuances of that new role. So your ego's gonna take a hit, and you're gonna start to feel like maybe this was a bad decision, and feeling uncomfortable is going to be normal. It should be normal, and you should feel uncomfortable because you're in a new position where you need to learn new things. You're not behind in that position, you just gotta give yourself the opportunity to learn new things, to be more educated in whatever the aspects of that new role is. So now during that transition, that you asked for the opportunity, but you weren't prepared for how hard it's going to hit you mentally and how hard it's going to be to now have to relearn or learn new things for that new role, right? And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I went from a retail setting to sales to a different type of sales. And now in 2 weeks, I'm going to be moving into a role that I have wanted to be in for probably the last 10 years. And that is, I'm going to be in charge of a full district. I'm going to be in charge of pretty much the western third of the state. And that new role is going to incorporate what I know in sales in conjunction with what I know from retail and how to develop people and how to manage people and how to be, accountable, not just for myself, but hold my team accountable and all of those things. So here's what they don't tell you while you're doing that transition, right? Everybody wants that next level. And of course, as I went through this process, I said, I want this role. I all of my skills that I've learned over the course of my lifetime are perfect for this position. But I'm just putting it out there that this position is a step for me to be able to get into the next step. And that new opportunity, this one, right? There's going to be new expectations for me. And it's going to be a challenge for me because I've been out of that management role for now 3 years. So now I got to reapply all of that management mindset in conjunction with the sales aspect, which is great because this is a challenge that I asked for. And I know that I can apply all those skill sets. But the first thing I need to do is be able to walk into this next role and not be confident that I can do it 100%, but be open to the fact that I'm going to have to reestablish myself as a manager and understand exactly what part of my sales skill set now fits into this opportunity. So now within this new role, there's the silent, I need to prove that I can do this position. And it's important that you have that mindset as you go into it and not a confident, arrogant mindset because every single job has a different expectation, right? So the expectation of a manager, just for argument's sake, at my previous retail position, those expectations may be broader than working at one of the competition's places. It may be that the new competition focuses on more, emphasis either on gross profit or payroll, whereas where I came from, the emphasis was on shrink and customer service. So there's definitely a challenge and a prove it period that comes in with that next role. The important truth is that this next phase, right, these next 6 to 8 months will determine whether or not this role and my skill set translate, into it and that I can do this job successfully. Now, that challenge, most people mentally want to quit. It, they'll physically stay, but they'll mentally want to quit because they don't see the instant translation from one role into the next. It's not like I took a role from being a department head within retail and then being an assistant store manager. That role translates, right? But when you move from a role of retail into sales, it's a hard transition. It's a different transition. And mentally, you might want to quit. Multiple times I questioned as to whether or not I could actually do that job. And when I transitioned into the new role in sales, I definitely questioned it because I don't have that hospitality background. But what I do know how to do is relate to people and I know how to build relationships. And I may not be at the unachievable expectations of this new role because they set the bar really, really high. And even for a seasoned salesperson, that bar is unachievable. Um, and I would beat myself up over whether or not I could hit those metrics. But the reality of it is that every step of the way I've showed growth and I've done everything that I need to do in order to be able to show that I have what it takes to be able to do this job. That whole transition period, right, from retail into sales, there's a whole lot of discomfort and there's a whole lot of unknown that comes along with it. And it should be there. It's part of that transition. It's part of the process. It's a part of doing something that you previously hadn't done before. But the price of all of that is growth, right? New opportunities don't come with the old confidence. You need to understand that there needs to be learning and growth that comes along with that transition. And you don't walk into growth comfortable, right? You should be uncomfortable. You should be unsure. You should have your confidence take that hit. And that's where some people can't push through that. That's where they give up. That's where the failure comes. That's where the questioning as to whether or not you should have made this transition comes from. But you can't give up on yourself at that point, right? You have to, again, you have to be uncomfortable in order to grow. If you're working in that uncomfortable stage and working in the unknown stage and challenging whether or not you have the ability to do that, that's where your mindset should be because that's where you start to realize where your opportunities lie within yourself and what things you need to work on in order to be able to fill that space where you can grow and prove that you can do this next step. So how do you navigate it, right? Like, stop trying to prove to yourself that you need to show everybody else that you can do this, right? So start proving that you belong. Stop trying to prove to everyone else that you belong. Does that make sense? So, like, show yourself that you can do it before you start trying to prove to somebody else that you can. And don't lose sight of how this process works, right? So think about it as in you're a new employee, right? So get back to the basics. Start asking questions. Be open to that feedback, positive and negative. Be open to learning. Understand that you don't know everything about this and asking questions and being open to that feedback, both positive and negative, is important. That's where you become coachable again. I think too many of us, when we get comfortable in a position, become uncoachable. But the idea behind it is that You at no point in your life know everything. So being coachable and being open to learning is important in every aspect, not just as a beginner, but in every aspect of your job at every single level. And we need to take the confidence and the ego we had in our old position and lose it, because we're not going to be coachable. We're not going to do the things that we had before in this new role. You don't lose respect by learning, you earn it. So be open, be coachable, be willing to ask questions, right? Now, the next step would be focusing on those small wins. And I have this conversation with somebody that's on my team now in sales. They beat themselves up all the time about not achieving where their goal is, but they forget to acknowledge the small wins throughout the day. So that's important. Every day, be accountable for your challenges and your opportunities, but don't neglect the fact that there were wins on that given day. Make sure that every single day there is some kind of a good interaction, either with your boss, with your coworkers, with the people that report to you. Make sure that those interactions are good. Don't beat yourself up and don't let the poor things reflect how you interact with all those other people. And learn something every single day. Take good notes. If you're not somebody that remembers things, bring a little pad with you and write it down. There's nothing wrong with it. If anything, it shows that you care enough about learning and care enough about what's being shown to you that you don't want to forget it. And remember that the confidence that you had leaving that one opportunity and moving into this next opportunity will be rebuilt. It's not built by leaps. It's built by baby steps. It's built by repetition. It's built by learning from all those other opportunities. So now we're putting ourselves back in a new higher position, and we're going to focus on all the small wins. All right. So what else can we control within this process? You can control your effort. You can control your attitude. You can control your preparation, right? All of those things you can control. So how you interact with that people, the the amount of attention that you take when you're interacting with those people, and how you apply yourself every single day. Did you take the notes from the day before and try to apply those into the next day? Did you do those things? You might not be able to control the results yet, but you can control how you apply yourself and how you show up every single day. So those are the things you can control. The patience part of that is going to be the hardest part, right? So you're not supposed to be great at a job immediately, a new role immediately. To be able to develop the skills of the new job, and to be able to develop the skills of how you have to interact with all of your coworkers, all of it takes time. It takes understanding. So think of it as being a farmer or being a gardener, right? You're just planting the seeds. The fruit hasn't developed yet. It takes time for from the period of time that you got the information to be able to apply it in a full capacity. The next thing would be to keep your standards high, right? So set the bar high for yourself. Understand that it's going to take time to get to that point, but keep showing up for yourself. Don't drop the standards because it's hard and it's uncomfortable or whatever. Hold that bar where you need to keep it up so that you constantly have to achieve every single day. You will earn your confidence back. Consistency rebuilds what your doubt tears down. So be patient and be understanding that this is a process, right? And it's going to take time for you to get back to where you felt like you were at your previous job. Now, through all of this, right, there's a moment when you stop feeling like the new guy and you start realizing that you belong in this role and that you are capable of doing this. And at that point, like, you'll stop overthinking everything and you will start to develop all the skills that you had at your previous spot. The work that you've been putting in will start to show, and you'll start to do it seamlessly without thinking, without the questioning, without all those things. It's just gonna click. And then you will start to trust your instincts again. It'll start to feel more natural to you. Others will start to notice, But more importantly, you will start to notice. And you'll start to see that all of that confidence that you had in your previous job will start to come back, and you'll start to be more comfortable within your role. And you'll start to understand that it wasn't about you needing more time. It was just about you needed to start applying what you had learned. So more repetition is what got you to that point where you start to feel like I can fucking do this. I can do this new role. That the challenge was worth it. And for me, like, to be able to use the two things that I've done so well in my lifetime, right? I've always been great at building relationships on the retail side and on the sales side, and building a level of trust and making it not just about business, but it's about getting to know them as a person. And now I get to be in a role where I get to apply all of those things. And I'd be wrong if I said I wasn't nervous about going into this, because I haven't had to apply both of those things, but I am nervous and I should be. But I'm also excited about the opportunity and the growth that comes with this. This is going to be an opportunity for me to make the most money I've ever made in my life. Now, I said that going into the position that I currently have in sales, but what I didn't expect was the challenges that are going to come along with it, right? So the challenges of all the competition in the area. The role I'm moving into, there is competition, but it's not competition in selling the same items. So now I get to use all of my skills as far as a salesperson and manage that into a whole pile and a whole truckload of things that I know about merchandising and gross profit and opportunities and all of those things, and learning how to use all of that sales knowledge with the management side of things, of accountability and setting a plan and getting the team moving in the right direction. I'm excited about all of that. How it's going to translate, I don't know yet. But it's too late for that because I've already made the move. And now I have to not feel like I made a bad decision before it pays off. All of that questioning and stuff is going to be normal. I made this choice, this transition, for a reason. And that reason is because I want more out of this life. I want more money. I want more opportunity. I want to be able to put my family in a better position financially so that we can just live life as comfortably as possible. So I can't let that temporary discomfort make me think I made a bad decision. And I need to keep myself in the frame of mind where growth takes time, learning takes time. Allow myself to show that the commitment for me showing up every single day and having the opportunity to learn and navigate this new business is going to take time. So I can't second guess myself. I can't back off of my decision of wanting to do this. I won't back off because I am way too excited about this opportunity. And I have to give it time, and I have to do the things that I always did, which was show up, give effort, and everything will fall into place. This is an opportunity for me to not start over, but to apply everything I've learned in my life to become stronger. Because at the end of the day, the people who win aren't the ones who avoid the hard transitions. There's the ones that push through and prove to themselves that they deserved it. And that's an important part of why we all make these transitions to change jobs, because we feel like we deserve it. We feel like that our personal value and our skill set is worth more than we're getting. And that's an important thing to put your finger on and tell yourself when you start being challenged and start overthinking as to whether or not that transition was worth it. You're worth it. Your value is worth it. And your skill set demands it. So don't be afraid to challenge yourself with those opportunities, and don't be scared to take that step. It should be nerve-wracking. It should be scary. It should be all of those things. But how you handle it and how you push through those challenges is where the reward comes through, where the learning and the understanding of who the person you really are is. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys have a great week. Don't forget to check out all the social media pages. As always, the Baines Brewing, the Brewed for Life podcast, and the Dad Son community. Definitely check out the TikTok page. Thank you guys again. I hope you have a great week. And as always, I appreciate all the listening and the support.